This is a Renew original recording. Hello and welcome to the Believe in People podcast. My name is Matthew Butler and I'm your host, or as I like to say, your facilitator. Today we speak with John. John serves not only as a harm reduction worker, but also as a living testament to the transformative power of overcoming addiction. His journey of resilience through a decade-long struggle with heroin addiction positions him as a beacon of hope and inspiration for others facing similar challenges. First of all, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm John Thurston. I'm an harm reduction worker at Renew.
Cheers, John. Thank you for giving up your time to come on today. Obviously, I've said this prior to us coming on here, but just to echo the point, I've wanted you on this podcast since day one. And my worry has always been that if we got you on, we'd peak too soon, because obviously I know elements of your story. A lot of people know who you are, especially in Hull, in the substance misuse community and people who use the Renew services. And I know parts of your story, but I don't know the exact timeline. So I guess that's what I'm kind of looking forward to today is piecing what I do know about you together. And I'm sure I'll be hearing some stuff for the first time as well. So we'll start at the beginning. Like, how old was you when you first started taking substances?
I was probably around about 13, 14, like most people with the mates round the park, drinking the old bottle of cider here, a bit of Tipex sniffing. Not real hardcore, just like recreational drug use as a young man, really.
Yeah. Tipex sniffing and like solvents was quite a big thing back then though, wasn't it?
Quite possibly. The first thing that I proper got stuck with was something called bra wax. And I was working at a furniture company, and there was rejuvenating furniture, and you'd polish it with a wax. Yeah. Well, they sent me into this room one day with the rest of the work, go wax it out for us. And I'm in there and I'm waxing it out, and 15 minutes later, my head's like, whoa, and I'm thinking, fucking hell, that's mental, that. Yeah. And that's, for me, is probably where things started to sort of like slip down the road more than what it actually had been. I mean, the reason I stopped bra wax sniffing is because I used to nick it from work, take it home, and there'd be me and all my mates all bra wax sniffing. Well, one of my mates got caught by his mum. Okay. He blew me up. Oh yeah, fucking John Thurston nicked it from work, didn't he? Anyway, so she rang the police about 12 one night. Bang, bang, bang on the front door. My old man's gone down and answered it. And then I heard, John, get your fucking ass down here. Went downstairs, there's fucking coppers there, innit? Anyway, they just started questioning us about this bra wax and whatever. Yeah, I did, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, gets up next morning, goes to work. As soon as me and my mate got to work, we both got sacked for nicking bra wax. We was out the door. And probably, I probably did that until I was about 17, 18, I can still remember us all going in lasers back in the day with bags of bra wax on us, and we was meant to be going out drinking, but we'd be going in the toilet and having a quick slice sniff as well as drinking as well. We did that for quite a while. Yeah. Considering I grew up in the rave age as well, man, I've never used an ecstasy tablet, which is quite unusual, I would have thought. I used acid and stuff like that, but probably things started going south for me when my son died, basically. So my son was 5 months old when he died. He died of a cot death. And after that event, I'm not going to sit here and say the reason I ended up where I ended up is because my son died. That would be absolutely not the right thing to do. I would never desecrate his memory like that, because it's not true anyway. That's the basic point of the fact. It is not true. I never ended up in the position I was in because of my son dying. Now, I've had professionals say to me that it would have impacted me on some of the choices I made after that. I'd probably agree with that, because within probably 6 weeks of him dying, I was in jail. It just went mad. I took a lot of sort of like responsibility for him dying. So the circumstances of him dying was I was working. We had twins. We had Katie and we had Matthew. I'd normally look after Katie and my partner would look after Matthew. I'd got up that morning to go to work and Matthew was awake, so I changed him, fed him, put him back in his cot and went to work. About 2 hours later, I was working at Auntie on a boat. We was fixing a sewage pipe there that had been run over. 2.5 hours later, I see my dad come bounding across on this boat with like face and thunder, and I'm thinking, fucking hell, what have I done? Am I in trouble? Have I done something? Something come on top for me? And he went to my son, get your stuff. Matthew's dad. I mean, I don't really remember too much after that. I remember getting to the hospital and seeing my mum and my partner and their mum all sort of like huddled in a circle, all crying. And as soon as I got there, they took me in to see him in the chapel arrest. It's the hardest thing I've ever had to deal with in all my life. He was in this little white crib, and he had all bruises round his mouth, and it was just heartbreaking. I can't even begin to tell you how heartbreaking it was. And then me taking the responsibility, because then my man started telling me the last thing my son saw was me turn my back on him and walk out the door and leave him to die. Now, I know that in there is not true. You know, I'm not a daft lad, and I know that's not true, but sometimes what you feel in your heart is different to what you think in your mind. After that, really, I just buried it with doing the wrong thing. Robbing, burgling, fighting, anything really. Anything to make me escape the pain that I was suffering from, because back in 1989, I didn't get any counselling or anything like that. They gave me 28 to Mazipan, go sleep off, sort of thing. So never really, ever had any counselling for it until later on in my life. But that was definitely a major part of my life and who I am and where I'm currently at. I mean, the positive side to it is now I'm in a totally different headspace, and, you know, my son stood behind me, patting me on the back, going, "Dad, keep it up, I'm proud of you." So when people ask me about why is your recovery so strong, how come you're really positive, and just the way I am being in recovery, and I think it's all from that self-empowerment. It is seeing things differently. It is training your brain, I reckon, to react in a different way. But getting back to it, so 19, Matthew died.
Can I just obviously, because there's a lot there, and you know, I think when we talk about reasons for substance misuse, you can tell there's two distinct differences there from. Obviously, you know, smelling, what was it, wax? What's it called?
Dry wax.
Smelling dry wax, is it?
Dry wax.
Dry wax, smelling dry wax. And then obviously going to using substances that you went on to use after, you know, the death of your son. Two completely different reasons there, wasn't there? So when you was young, was it just that young experimentation?
Yeah.
Or was the reasons for escapism even when you was young?
I had two older brothers, and our Dean is the one in the middle. And for some reason, I always looked up to him. He was a role model, even though he wasn't living the best life. He was in jail. I mean, he spent probably the first 10 years of his life, from 16 to 26, probably did 7 of them in jail. And I used to think that was pretty cool. And look, our Dean, you know, I'd always be talking about him. And the mad thing is, every time he went to jail, our Dean was what was called the townie back in the day. So he'd have samba, he'd have Lois coats, he'd have all these really nice clothes. Well, as soon as he went to jail, I had his fucking clothes on, didn't I? And I wanted to be him and be like him. Yeah. And yeah, maybe looking back, probably it wasn't the right thing to look. But I don't know. I think I wanted to project this person that I want, because probably deep inside I was quite scared, and, you know, like probably any young adult growing up. I want 100% confident person. So looking up to Aldine and seeing him getting into trouble, I'm not blaming anybody for the choices that I made. You know, I made my choices from my own free will, but probably I was influenced by role models that really weren't role models.
But I think that a lot of people will be able to relate to that anyway. I mean, we had Andy on the podcast. He was on the first ones we did, and we talked about role models in pop culture. And, you know, when your role models are, you know, rock and roll stars that are doing drugs all the time, that's just the way. And then we had Peter on the podcast, and Peter spoke to us about heroin chic and how it was sort of like that look was quite almost desirable. People wanted to be something like that. And now, obviously, in 2023, would never glamorise that or as role models as such, and if it was, it'd be quite, low key, really. Whereas back in the, 70s, 80s, and even 90s, really, using drugs and using substances and the rock and roll stars and people that did that, it was seen as cool. And I think going back to, talking about your brother, everyone always idolises their older siblings, don't they? Because they're doing the things that you're not doing, which obviously, again, in hindsight, you look back and you go, actually, it wasn't the thing to do, but at the time, it seemed cool anyway. I think that's completely normal.
Well, I think we all grow up, don't we? And we all have different experiences. Probably the best role model was my dad.
Yeah.
If I'd lived the life my dad wanted me to live in the first place, because I was all set for going in the army, and he had this sort of planned out future, because he was from the background of the army. My dad, he was an hard worker. He was an hard man, and he was a disciplinarian, and sometimes probably more than he should have been, but you grew up back in the 70s and 80s when if you was naughty, you got a clip, you got into trouble. But then, to be fair, I was 10-year-old and I had the old bill knocking at my door. My first criminal conviction is for shoplifting at 10-year-old. It probably says where my life was heading at that point, at 10-year-old. So if I'd have listened to my dad in the first place, quite possibly my life experiences would have been a lot different.
Yeah. But we never, going back to that, we never look at our, obviously I've got all the respect in the world for my dad, absolutely love my dad now, but as a kid, my dad was never cool. Do you know what I mean? You never looked up to your dad and idolised him for those reasons, because your dad's your dad, but obviously older siblings often cool. But then you get, you get to an age where you look at it and you go, hang on, my dad was probably the role model that I needed and the role model that I had, but also the role model that I chose to not take any notice of, really. And I think that's just growing up, isn't it? Once you get to those ages, you look at them and you can... I think sometimes it's once you have children yourself, you start to look at the things your parents did and go, hang on, this makes more sense now. I can relate to why he was the way he was, and it wasn't sort of punishing me because I'd done something wrong. It was because maybe they don't want you to go down that path, and when you become a parent yourself, you kind of look at having children, you think, actually, I wouldn't want that for them, and you relate to your parents more once you become a dad yourself.
I think the mad thing for me, Matt, is I was brought up in a family with no drug or alcohol problems in it. My mum and dad never had drug or alcohol issues. My children have grown up around me having drug and alcohol issues. And all four of them have turned into the most amazing adults any father could possibly want. And I look sometimes and I think, look at you, for you was brought up around what I was doing. But I was brought up in a totally different environment where you would have thought I'd end up being all right. And you would have thought maybe my children would at least follow me into the game that I was playing. But I'm so fortunate that none of them have ever gone down there. And obviously, you see, unfortunately, children follow parents into addiction. I'm just really lucky that my kids saw the damage it did. My kids have always been there for me. They'll never let anybody say anything bad about me. So that tells me I did something right, I hope, because I did bring 3 of my children up as a single parent throughout my addiction as well. With no social services involvement. I mean, for me, my kids are the most important thing now, and the grandkids is. And the thing that I'm the proudest of is my grandkids are never going to suffer the pain my kids suffered. That makes me feel so proud about where I am, what I've done. I would never lie to them. If they ever ask me why I do the job that I do or anything like that, I will always be upfront and honest with them. But to be fair, I'm upfront and honest with most people. I don't hide behind a veil of shame. That's not saying I don't feel shame.
But you don't hide behind it.
But I don't hide behind it. Probably the hardest thing of living in recovery is being able to forgive yourself. I found that difficult at times. Even being in recovery 15 years, sometimes I still find them emotions difficult to manage. Most people probably think, oh, your life's great, you just go to bed and you sleep. Now, there's nights I go to bed and I'm laid there for 3 hours without no good stick in me and reinforcing how much shit I was back in the day. But you know what? That's part and parcel of recovery, unfortunately. You have to live with stuff. You have to live with choices that you've made in the past. And it's part of the thing that keeps me moving forward. The shame that I feel for what I was doing is the thing that stops me going, do you know what, fuck it, I'm going to go back to where I came from.
So in terms of like addiction, do you know, and people say there's the argument of that you can almost inherit the disease from your parents. Now, obviously, your parents didn't have any substance misuse problems, but I understand your brother had substance misuse problems.
All three of us did.
All three of you?
Yeah.
And then none of your children have had it either as well?
My children, and now I'm not going to say they use weed.
Yeah.
But never crack, heroin, anything in that sense. But yeah, for us, we were...
They've never used dependently, but...
Yeah,
recreationally.
Well, do you know what? That was my downfall, wasn't it? Yeah. Recreational drug use. Because I thought the next drug that I'll pick up, I'll just put down like the last one. You know? So at 22, me and my partner had just finished, actually. I didn't want my children as a single dad. I'm not saying that I don't love them and whatever, but when we finished, I asked her, can I have Katie for, because I'm back at my mum's, I want my own place. Yeah. And back in the day, in the early 90s, if you had a kid, you got an house. It was as simple as that. So Katie came to live with me when I was about 22, 23. Stayed at my mum's and dad's for about 6 months. But the mad thing there is, luckily, because I was living at my mum's and dad's, I looked after her because she was still a baby. And I was going out. Well, I was going out to one of my mates' house and taking some marzipan every night. And that was probably when I was about 22, 23. And that went on for about, I don't know, I think stayed at my dad about 8 months before I got my first property. So for about 8 months, I was going to my mate's house and we was using some marzipan. First thing that I ever injected, actually, was with that lad. It was a wobbly egg. So back in the day, temazepam was called gel fix. Yeah. And you could inject them. And it was the first thing that I ever did where I injected it in my ankle. And it was shit. And I just thought, that was scary. And it was shit. I'm not doing that again. Anyway, I got my first house. I played rugby for my local pub teams. I had a really good life. I had good friends. Things was good after, I'm not saying things was good after my son died, but probably around about 23, 24 is when my son Adam came to stay with me. He was about, he was about 18 months old when he first came. And I was a really good single parent, I think. I was a really good dad. My kids have always been well looked after. I think even though I was hardcore in addiction, I was a really good functioning addict as well. And I was really good at manipulating people and pulling the wool over their eyes and getting them to see something that probably really they didn't see. So I learned to hard stuff pretty early. Yeah. So anyway, about 23, our Adam had come to live with me. Our Dean had just got into a new relationship with somebody with a bird. I started snorting rackets. So if you don't know what a racket is, back in the day it was called transcends. So they're a little bit like buprenorphine thing. Put them under your tongue, let them dissolve. That's the right way to take them. Well, if you banged them in a needle with 50 ml of hot water and give them a shake, it'd break them down. Well, that was probably the second thing that I injected. But I didn't inject. At that point, my hands was just massive with veins like tree trunks. It was go on then. And it was somebody else who gave me my first hit. And wow. I can't even begin to tell you what that was like. It just blew my mind. It was the best feeling. And even still, after going on and using probably more hardcore drugs, it was the best feeling that I've ever had from a drug. You hear people who say, I felt that rush from my feet to my head. With a racket, you did. You actually felt it come up through you and into your stomach. It'd make you gag a bit. But the mad thing about rackets was, they made you be sick quite a lot, but the more you were sick, the more intoxicated you became. So every time you were sick, you was a little bit more intoxicated. So that became a bit of a thing as well, really. Like being sick.
It improved the high sort of thing.
Improving the high. So I did rackets, I don't know, for about 2 years, but at this point I was still...
Are rackets still about? Do people still... Because I've never heard of them.
I'm not sure, if I'm honest. What they say is the buprenorphine today, but buprenorphine today now was a blocker in it.
So it'll work different.
Back in the day, I don't think there was a blocker in them. Back in the day, it was people with back issues. So anyway, I started taking rackets.
And at this point, this is, going back to, obviously using the Briar wax for escapism, you've lost your son. you're moving. This is for escapism now, isn't it? It's not recreational, and it's not just. Is this dependency at this point?
No, for the records, 1,000,000%, that was definitely the first thing that I became dependent on. And how I knew I was dependent on them actually was, so back in the day, you could do times in jail and have them squashed. And warrant man came and grabbed me at my house when I was living in my first house. But it was really good actually. And he let me go to my brothers and let my brother and his partner at the time, look, if they're taking me to fucking jail, can you pick the kids up from school and have them for them? And but my mum ended up having them in the end anyway, the kids. And that's where I did my first rattle, in old jail.
Yeah.
I fucking laid on my bed and I'm thinking, well, I feel shit, mate. I feel really shit. And
so you didn't even know you was dependent on them until you was in jail?
No, definitely not. I didn't even, I mean, because all the drugs I've used before, I've never been dependent on.
And like you said, recreational.
Recreational.
You could always put them down.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think probably I didn't learn enough from that experience. So I probably did records for about 2 years, but like I said, I was still playing rugby. I was fit as...
Because you was functioning, it didn't seem like dependency.
Yeah.
You're doing all the things.
I was doing all the normal things. I was still going out on the weekend. Yeah, my life, like, it didn't have that major impact because the record cost me £1 a day.
Is that
it wasn't like what people now spend on heroin and crack, where they're spending hundreds and thousands of pounds a day sometimes on it. It was £1 a day. And a fiver for a bit of resin on a night time. You know, to go with it. So my habit was probably costed me 14 quid a week. It's nothing in the context of what I was getting because I was a single dad. You know, so in that sense, it was definitely records that showed me about dependency.
So had you, when you was in prison and you laid there and you're doing this rattle, had you made the link at that time that you're feeling this way because you're not taking the records? How did you come up with that conclusion?
I think I always knew.
Okay.
To be fair. You know, because of the circle that you go in, people do it. But until it happens to you, you know, I was like, I'll put it down when I'm ready. I don't know what you're all worried about. It's not a fit, it's not a problem, it's not a thing. You know, minimising it. I was an extreme person. I loved doing extreme things. I was always a risk taker. I think that was part of my problem, maybe. I loved to take risks. I loved living on the edge of the edge. It gave me something. I don't know what, but it just gave me something. It made me feel, I don't know, empowered. Maybe, do you know what? Maybe I was too cocky, too confident, too arrogant. I'm different to everybody else, aren't I? It's not going to get me. And I think my arrogance and my cockiness, well, you can't fucking tell me. I know everything, don't I? I'm a man of the world. You know, but in reality, I didn't know too much and I didn't really understand, considering, really, at 23, you probably think you should know a little bit more.
How old was you when Matthew passed away?
19, I was.
So obviously, it's like one of these things is such a young... I think at that age, you're a kid yourself, aren't you?
Yeah.
I mean, I became a dad last year, and even then at 30, I was like, this is a lot of responsibility to have. So to kind of have that, I can't imagine having it at 19. I can't imagine having that level of responsibility at that age. So to have had that responsibility, to have gone through that grief and that trauma of what you'd gone through, I think it's only natural that you used substances for escapism in the way that you did, really, to summarise up to that point and to go into it. You're a young lad still, and because of that, I mean, your parents will worry about you forever. Do you know, you're always going to be, you're always going to be your parents' baby, aren't you, no matter how old you get. What was it like for them seeing you go from the death of Matthew to dependency of drugs?
Well, my mum and dad have lost a child as well. So I had a younger brother called Stephen, and he died from having an hole in his heart when he was a baby, about 6 weeks old, I think it was. So, you know, Matthew wasn't much older than...
How old was Matthew? Was he
Matthew was 5 months older when he died. I think the hardest part of that event was when Matthew and Katie was born, they was born like 6 weeks premature, and they only weighed £3.13 ounces. The pair of them, they weighed exactly the same weight. Katie was born first, absolutely no problem outfit. Matthew came out, he was already blue, cord round his neck, straight to a special baby care unit, and it was touch and go then whether he lived or he died. But one of the hardest things is he came through that. He made a miraculous recovery and turnaround, and then getting him home after, I think it was about 3.5 months before they came home, and then getting him home and him coming through that, and then for him to die for no reason, because they couldn't give me a reason of why he died. They basically told me what they felt is maybe his brain had sent a shock to his heart, and his heart just never restarted again. So we've never, and I think that's the same for everybody who suffers cot death. There is no real answer for you of why this event happened.
That's the thing with, I mean, obviously my daughter's just turned 19 months now, but sudden infant death syndrome, or SIDS as they call it, terrified me. And when you told me about Matthew, I knew we'd spoke about it, you know, obviously I've known you years now, you'd spoken about Matthew to me before, but when you told me about Matthew passing away at 5 months, my daughter had just turned 5 months, and I thought I was out of the sudden infant death syndrome, cot death stage then. I remember the fear that I had, like, you know, obviously, you know, then I'd be putting it to bed and it'd be checked, you know, and again, I know there was nothing that happened, but I think the scary thing is, as a parent of a newborn, is knowing something like that can happen, and that sometimes these things can't be, and you're already anxious as a new parent, aren't you? And I think, obviously, I did it at 30. I've got a little bit more knowledge, wisdom. I'm a little bit more grown up, but to have that at 19, I just think that's an incredible amount of pressure, and then to lose.
I mean, I've got grandkids now, and my biggest fear is that it happens to one of my kids. Yeah. You know, I'm so happy when they get past the 5 month stage. So we've got a little girl currently, and she's not far from the 5 month stage, and I could never imagine that happening to any of my kids. It is the most darkest.
It's heartbreaking to go through it as a parent, but as a parent of the parent, so like I imagine, and going back to your parents and how they felt.
That was a really good thing about it, though. We've got a shared experience.
Yes.
So in reality, I could actually sit and listen to my dad when it came to that shared experience, and especially my mum, because my mum's my rock. My dad at times has kept us at arm's length for obvious reasons, okay? My mum is the one who always put her arm around me and told me it was going to be all right. You'll get through this. It'll be all right. And without that, I don't think I would be here today. She never criticised me for any of the choices that I was making. She never looked down at the people I was hanging around with, like smackheads, scumbags, dirt. It was not like that at all. My mum, I know we all say this about our mums, don't we? But
best
mum, if you're watching this, you're the best person, the most kind-hearted woman I know, and I love you to bits. All right. So like I said, you know, my mum and dad have that shared experience of losing a child. I mean, in reality, my son dying, it didn't really hit me until the day of his funeral. And I remember being stood on the doorstep, and I looked up straight and I saw the cars coming down, and I went upstairs into the bedroom, and I was just absolutely in bits. So I don't remember the journey to the crematorium very well, but I certainly remember the walking. So my son's coffin was about, I don't know, about that big. And I carried his coffin down to when my dad there with his arm around me. You know, like I said, I think having that shared experience with my parents has been a good thing. Dad doesn't talk about emotions very often. You know, my dad said, man's man.
Older generation as well, isn't it?
But the amount of different conversations I've had with my mum, she's a different level, my mum. You know, my parents they've definitely not deserved the 3 sons that they got. $1,000,000% they deserve 3 sons with more credit and credibility to it. I know today they see things different, obviously, because, you know, what I've done. But yeah, back in the day, I just didn't really understand the pain and misery I was causing people. I think because I was in so much pain, and I just wanted people to feel what I was feeling.
Yeah, I get that. I get that completely. How did the death of Matthew affect the relationship with Matthew and Katie's mum?
I mean, we had 2 more kids after it, but I would have said my ex, she just didn't deal with it very well. So his remembrance was 16th of June, just gone. And it's the first time she's ever come to where we've laid his ashes to rest, because we laid his ashes to rest on the dock just after I'd got out of jail. An event happened, but I'd rather not discuss that.
No, we don't
I
have
can
to.
discuss that with you later. But an event happened, and I think it was very immature, to be fair. He was trying to live like an adult grown-up relationship, and there was no adult grown-up relationship to it. I'd cheat on her, she'd cheat on me. I want the greatest boyfriend, if I'm honest. But again, probably being young and naive, and, you know, I thought, you control people like that, don't you? Really.
This is what I'm saying, your kids in itself. I mean, if I could give advice to anyone, it'd be have children later in life. Because, you know, I think, not resentment towards children, but I think in a way there's a level of resentment towards each other and your partners, and maybe you might feel like you haven't done the things you wanted to do or thought you was going to do, and that resentment will manifest in different ways. But having a child as well, that's when you're in each other's life forever.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of my own life, getting married to my wife was one thing. We could get divorced and never see each other again. We got a mortgage together. Again, we could separate, never see each other again.
Yeah.
But once you have children with someone, you know, birthdays, maybe your kids' weddings, you're in your life forever now. That's the moment where you're in each other's life forever.
I mean, me and Donna are a lot older now as well. We get on really, really well now. It's like the events that happened in the past never really happened. You know, our kids and grandkids are gorgeous and they're happy, and that's what counts to me. And just like you said, my kids weren't that in when they had the kids. Our Paddy's just having a new baby now, and he's 37. You know, and there's 15 years between this first one and this one, so more fool you, man. But I think he'll enjoy it, because he's having a little girl as well, and he's got a boy. But I think today, when you look at, you know, the full aspect of your life, I'm a lucky man. I'm a really, really lucky man that I've got 4 beautiful kids, I've got grandkids, I've got 2 parents who adore me, I've got 2 brothers who need to kick up their ass sometimes. But I always felt like I was the oldest when I was the youngest and most maturest out of me and my brothers. But again, I was really good at making bad choices, I think.
Yeah.
I didn't even have to practice them, they just fucking came really easy. Go on then, I'll do that. I think I was more of a sheep, wasn't I? I just followed the flock, really, rather than now I consider myself today. I'm the shepherd, mate. I'm in charge of my flock. No longer does the flock dictate what I'm doing with me. I dictate to my flock, and I think that works really well, especially in my recovery, and seeing it in a different way to how a lot of people might see their own recovery.
So going from, you know, injecting records, did you move on to heroin?
Not straight away.
When? How long? And give me the story of how that came.
How it came to using heroin. So I was 27. So quite old, really. I'd stopped records years before. I think I only used records up to about I was 24.
Did you have to do like a detox from it or anything?
Well, I had to do a rattle.
Yeah. Okay, just went through a rattle.
Just went through a rattle to get off the. But used other drugs through that rattle. You know. As you do.
Yeah.
Did my rattle, smoked weed really for the next 3 years, not really taking hardcore stuff. Like I said, I was playing rugby.
Yeah.
I mean, I was fit as a fiddle, I was.
I can see you smiling now thinking, those were the days when I could run more than 2 minutes.
I think for me, the reason it makes me smile is because I had such a good life and I threw so much away for one bad choice really. You know, I was 27. My relationship had proper broken down because even though I Katie when I was 23, me and Donna were still seeing each other and sleeping with each other and stuff. And that relationship finally broke down when I was about 26, 27. So at that point, I started going to my brother's. Well, he was already using heroin at this point. And look, I didn't take heroin because anybody in that building went, you're going to use this and that's how it is. My naivety of going, wrong place, wrong time, go on and I'll ever go on that. I never knew at that point where the next 10 years was going to go. I didn't stick my hand in the air and go, do you know what? Fuck it, I'll be a smackhead for 10 years. It sounds like a right laugh. Mum and Dad will be proud. My kids will be proud. It wasn't like that. Yeah. Again, I should have known better because of the rackets and that. But I didn't care. I assume, obviously, I didn't care enough to give it enough forethought to go, that's not a very good choice, is it? You shouldn't be making this choice. Go home and have a think about it.
Obviously, like you've said, there was no counselling, and I bet there's no way at this point you'd have processed the loss of Matthew. So
I ain't processed it now, and
that's what I'm saying.
53 years old.
So it's gonna. I guess that continued escapism is going to be a theme in I guess where your life was going. Had that thought of loss and bereavement contributed at that time, or was it just a spare of the moment? You're using.
Yeah.
I'll have some.
I'd nothing to do with the bereavement. None of my drug use has ever had anything to do with the bereavement that I suffered. Like I said, I would never sit here and put that on myself.
Yeah, I completely understand that. Yeah,
it's because I'd be lying. You know,
you did it.
Now that was the case. I would hand on heart, God, this is the reason why. But 1,000,000% it wasn't. It was a naive choice. I had a good life, like I said. I was now bringing two of my children up.
Yeah.
You know, I had a good background. I had a good life behind me. I was working. You know, I was doing the right thing. Just one bad choice. I mean, where it took me in the next 10 years is a place that nobody probably ever would want to go. But again, I hid it really, really well.
Talk me through those 10 years then. What was the worst moment in that 10 years of heroin use that you experienced?
There's a couple. There's two that stand out. So, I was injecting in my groin.
Yeah.
In my right leg. And my right leg had swollen up to about twice the size what it currently is. It was really, really painful. But like most addicts back in the day, well, I'll sort it tomorrow. I'll sort it tomorrow. Well, I remember standing up. We just scored. We was going to use. And I remember standing up. And as I stood up, where I used to inject in my groin, there was an hole. And it just popped. And all of a sudden, this brown, green, stinking, horrible, gooey stuff just started squirting out of my groin like a fountain. And I'd have been at home, it was about, I don't know, about that fat by about that high. While I was filling that up with this green, brown, stinking shit, I just go on the other side. So while that's squirting out of there, I mean, that side doing exactly the same to that side as what I'd done to that side. But here, you know, that's the cons, pros and cons of what I was doing.
What was the logic? Talk me through that logic, because obviously that sounds insane. This is happening to this leg. I know what I'll do. I'll use the other one.
It was easy, wasn't it? Didn't value myself today. You know, if I die, who's going to fucking miss me? Yeah. You know, people be better. I mean, my mindset then was people be better off without me anyway. Yeah. I'm not fucking good. It'd been reinforced for me. You know, I'm probably one of the few that actually still lives in the same house that I had my habit on the estate that I grew up on. Yeah. You know, so on my estate, I'd gone from everybody liking me, being a really popular person, to within weeks of me starting to use heroin going into a smackhead. You know, probably for me, the most hurtful part of that period in my life, I'm telling you, I'm sat here saying I had this great life and I had these great mates. Not one of them ever came and knocked on my door and went, what the fuck are you doing? Come and get back to rugby. Come on, what the fuck are you doing? Don't be doing this. Not one of them. Instantly, hands washed to me, you're a fucking smackhead. You're no good. And then all that was reinforced for the 10 next years was how shit I was. And how bad I am. And how much of a scumbag I am. And I took that on, didn't I? You know, you get told something enough, you believe it. You
believe it, yeah.
You know? It's like that no good stick, innit? I'm no fucking good, mate. I'll never change. Yeah. And that's basically what I did for years. Why should I change? I'm no good. Nobody cares about me. I didn't even care about myself. Yeah, how can you expect other people to care about you when you don't even care about yourself? I guess. You know, all the responsibility lies at my door. It doesn't lie at anybody else's door. I was the one who made them choices. For whatever reasons. It was me who went, go on then. Naively.
So what happened in that moment then? You're filling this bin up with...
Well, like I said, I'm filling this bin up in my living room, fucking... And I'm in the other side injecting.
Was you by yourself at the time?
No, I was with my partner.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
With my partner. It's what you did, wasn't it? You know, I was living a lifestyle that what you did is just what you did. It came with part of you. It was like, you don't accept it. It's just what it is. I'd used all my veins. I was such a bad injector. My practices was absolutely fucking shit. And now I know what I know about harm reduction, being an harm reduction worker. I can understand why my veins went as quick as they did. You know, but we was listening to street doctors back in the day, weren't we? How many rational people would let somebody inject them with something? Yeah. Let alone it not be heroin, it could be anything. You know, what rational person does that? Not many rational people do that.
So what was this then? What did you go to doctors with this?
Nah. Eventually I ended up going to hospital with my leg, and I had a DVT in it. But again, that stigma down at the end of the ward, curtain around me. You know, there's 30 people on the ward, right? They got their curtains around them. So again, stigmatised for what I was doing to myself. I understand it, but that doesn't make it acceptable. You know, I think a lot of good things have actually come out of my addiction, to be fair. I'm a more rounded person than I've ever been. 1,000,000% I am. You know, and I think that's because of my own experience of stigma for choices that I was making. Like I said, I wasn't a bad person. I was making bad choices. 1,000,000% I'd agree with that. You know, I always knew deep down inside I was better than what I was doing to myself. I just didn't know how to escape it. Luckily for me, my two brothers got clean before me. All right, so when it became my time, and again, I fell into two old friends as well who was both in recovery. So I had 4 people around me already in recovery. I didn't even know what recovery was. You know, I wasn't in a service. I was with Dr. Here. I just get fuck off. I just get fuck off, you know. So my detox and getting clean was done around people who was already doing it. You know, and again, they've never been in services, so none of us knew about, like, total abstinence. I've been in recovery 15 years, but I've only been 100% clean for the last 12. Because my first 3 years, I was drinking 3 times a week. I was going out on a weekend, I was having a line of coke. I was still involved in that. Other substances. But I'm not using heroin anymore, I'm not a methadone. Life's fucking back to normal, back to being happy. Again, not really understanding that next thing could have become my next thing. And then when I was 37, and when I started sorting my life out.
Actually, just before we go into the recovery, you said there was 2 rock bottom moments.
So
tell me the second one.
The second rock bottom moment is probably the one that'll shock most. There was injecting in my penis.
To be fair, to listen to the audio version, they won't see my face there, but I'd explain that. Right. I've never heard of anybody. I know there's veins there, but my last thing would be to thinking I'm going to inject into...
I've gone in places where people probably wouldn't know because they don't know the history of probably injecting. So my neck.
Yes.
My neck was the first place that I went in. Someone else did it for me. It was the most scariest thing that I'd ever done, and that only ever happened once. It never happened again. And the reason I ended up going in my penis was because now my groins are knackered. I can't get them. I've got no veins. I'm putting 20 quid worth of gear in a spoon, cooking it up, going to have it, and 3 hours later I've still got it in my hand and now it's full of blood and it's shit and it's congealed, and in fairness, when you do get it, it's pointless because it's not any good anymore. So, absolutely desperate, I was rattling my tits off, and I thought, you know what, I'll this is a good idea.
This is a good idea. How did you look at me? This is a good idea.
I think the reward obviously outweighed the risk, didn't it? You know, a bit like my neck.
I wouldn't have said that personally.
A bit like my neck, right? When I injected in my neck, I didn't consider it. If anything wrong, I've only got one fucking head, haven't I? You know, you fucked out. A bit like my knob. You know, if something had gone wrong, I'd have been abstinent for the rest of my life if it had been cut off, wouldn't I? But I was desperate. I won't say I was rattling because I wasn't, but I was just desperate to use. Anyway, you know, sits on the edge of my toilet, got my kegs on my hand, I'm fucking checking like fucking sweat's pouring down here, got my cock in my hand. Got it first time, oh fucking hell, that was... And it just gives you that feeling like it would anywhere else. So that created a second charge in it, didn't it? Well, that time it went like jet black, and it didn't look good. So that was when I decided to smoke it, actually, and that was a godsend of all godsends, to be fair.
So go on. To be fair, because obviously you can educate me on this one a little bit, but I've never thought about that. If you're in that position, you're in addiction, you've got nowhere to inject. That that idea of I'll just smoke it instead doesn't seem like an option to a lot of people. They will
it
instead
wasn't really an
find,
option to me.
No, but that's what I mean. They'll find the as you've just said. Then you'll find the most riskiest place to inject it. How come that isn't really a thing that people think of? Like, I'll tell you what, I'll just smoke it instead. How come people don't have that as a logical solution?
Because of the difference between smoking heroin to injecting heroin.
And what is that?
Well, obviously, when you're injecting heroin, you're getting the full whack, aren't you? Every little bit of it.
Straight into the bloodstream.
Straight into the bloodstream, straight to the brain, bang. When you're smoking it, 25% of it's going up the side of the tooth and burning away on the foil. So if you're buying a tenner bag and you smoke it, you're probably going to get £6.50 worth. After what's gone up the side and what you do burning it.
Okay.
But smoking was better than not using, in all fairness. But when I started smoking it, I was only psychologically fixing myself. I know that now. I've had some, and not once did I sit around and gouge off it. But that being said, right, I wasn't really a gouchy person, and that's why I functioned really, really well. You know, we see a lot of old types out with they'll use, and that's it for 5 hours. It definitely wasn't like that for me at all. You know, I'd use when my children was at school, when they was in bed on a night time. I never ever used around my children. But the naivety of that is, you think your children don't know.
I was about to say, how did they know then?
Now my children are adults and we can sit down.
Had these conversations.
I'm a very, I like to take responsibility. So if my kids say to me, this happened, I would never stand there and go, no, it fucking didn't. How do I know I was off my tits most of the time? You know, so they dressed me up as a woman once. I have no recollection of it, but they'll laugh their heads off at it. And I would never sit going, that didn't happen. And there's horrible stuff in there as well. You know, there was a few times that my children found 1 mils in the house, you know. But that blind naivety, your own belief is, they don't know what's happening, they're only kids. But the older adults have told me, you know, when my bedroom door was shut, they didn't know I was in there injecting and taking drugs, but they knew something was going on in there. So that affected them as children. You know, my kids got so bullied and picked on because of what I mean, there was times when I'd have 30 people outside my house wanting to wear me in. Not because I was out burgling people or doing bad things, because I was an heroin addict. Pure and basic. You know what the worst part is? The people who was outside criticising me, I was scoring my fucking drugs off their parents. You know, they was terrifying my children. They was coming to my house. Woke up one day with fucking smackhead sprayed all over my house and that. Scumbag, get out. You know, someone set my back garden on fire. Nearly killed me in a fucking arson attack. It was
all just because you using.
Because I took heroin. Like I said, I wasn't out burgling people, Matt. I wasn't doing bad things, you know. I was bringing my children up. My partner was a manager of Belmont Club and all, and I saw her earning £600 a week. We didn't claim together. I was getting £250 a week for my kids. We could spend £400 a week on gear and it not financially impact us. You know, we still went on holiday. We still had internet. We had a car. We had everything what you would call normal people had, except we took heroin. You know, that's how.
Why do you think there was this negative stigma attached to you then, and this prejudice and hate that you experienced?
You're smackhead, aren't you? You're lower than the law, aren't you? People just take it upon themselves that they think they know you and they think they know what you're doing. You know,
people need a villain, don't they?
The bad thing is, right, Matt, and this is the same for everybody who's caught. If you're raid, smackhead robs pensioner of money, well, it's not just them, is it? It's everybody who now uses heroin is just like that. And you get brushed, you get tired with that brush. Like I said, I wasn't a bad person.
It goes back to what you're saying about like your former thoughts of like racism and things like that. It's partly the same thing, isn't it? Things you see in newspapers and you instantly go, I get it, I connect with it, I understand it, and therefore you just tar everybody with the same brush. Obviously you spoke then about experiencing that level of stigma and prejudice for being, quote unquote, a smackhead. What do you still live in that estate or that area?
Yeah, still live in the same house as me, Aberdeen.
So I was going to say, I thought you said that. So what's the sort of reaction to you now that you're?
Well, it's obviously a lot more positive. People actually nod at you and let on to you. Some people are just like, whatever. But It's been a good response, I think, you know. I've never had nobody knocking at my door in the last 15 years giving me grief for being a baghead. Yeah. You know, it has been really positive because I am quite well known, you know. On my estate, I'm quite well known in services now because of what I do. But I think the recovery part of my life, the proper recovery part of my life, has probably been a really, really positive experience.
What brought that on then? To go through everything that you've gone through, and again, I know the two aren't attached, but you know, going through, you know, the grief and bereavement, and then going through dependency and those issues that you had there. What was it that brought you to the point where you thought, right, it's time to stop?
So I was 37 now, so I'd been using probably 10 years. Like I said, my physical health wasn't great. Me and my partner were still together. Well, my partner ended up leaving, and because she was the biggest breadwinner in the house, it took 600 quid a week out of the household. 2 weeks later, one Saturday, I woke up and I owed my mum all my money. I owed my fucking drug dealer all my money, and I just thought, you know what, I can't keep doing this anymore. Something needs to change. Well, I had a mate, and again, I'll come to something which is really positive as well later on. But yeah, I had a mate, so I went and borrowed more money off my mum. 28 quid and bought 28 benzos. So at 37 I was using 50 quid a day and injecting 50 quid a day. Wasn't really into tablets and stuff like that. So I went and got 28 quid, went and bought 28 benzos. I was with Dr. Weir, so he'd given you anything except for a script. Started to do my rattle, basically, from the team for gear back down. And I was on 6 methadone as well at this point. Yeah. So over about 7 days, I did my rattle from using the team for gear down to stopping. But the first 3 months was probably quite a bit of a miss. I'd not used for 3 days and then maybe used for 1. But then not used for 5 days and used for 3. But I think the days that I was not using was then being reinforced that I can actually go through a day without needing to use. And then I had the impact of my 2 brothers already being in recovery and my 2 friends being in recovery. My kids being really supportive. So did me rattle down to my meth over 2 weeks. Obviously, again, because I was with Dr. Weir, there was no detox.
I was going to say, was there a detox or a structure to it?
So the structure was by my pharmacist, a Spanish guy called Antonio. If it weren't for Antonio, trust me, I wouldn't be sat here today. Yeah. He believed in me. As soon as I went into my pharmacy and said, Antonio, look, mate, I'm doing this and I want to do that, he went to me, right, this is what I think we should do. I think you should go see Dr. Weir and reduce 3 mil a fortnight. I went, are you sure? He went, mate, trust me, go see Dr. Weir, I'll support you through it, we'll get you through it. And it was the most amazing experience. The first time a true professional had looked at me without stigma, without judgment, and with just care, understanding.
It's insane that a pharmacist had to take on that responsibility though, isn't it? Knowing what I know now of a service like Renew and what we have, that a pharmacist was the one that had to kind of be that point of encouragement. And,
it was like God, wasn't it? It was the angel sent to me. You know, and I'd known him for years, because he was that chemist for years, you know, and I think it was something he instilled in me.
And it's even nice for him to if he even more so using that chemist for years and still believed in you, and not just having that opinion of, here he is for his methadone, and then he's going to, do you know what I mean? To still have that belief in you is wonderful. It's really nice to hear that.
Like I say, without that plan, without being able to move forward, without my 4 new people who was, I mean, like I said, we didn't know what recovery was then. We would never consider ourselves in recovery or anything like that, or abstinent, all that sort of stuff. So when I struggled, Paddy, I feel like using, right, Dad, get dressed, we're taking the van to park, we're going to... So I was really good at picking the phone up when I was struggling.
Yeah.
But I was really self-determined as well. So I was just started getting clean. I was still in that circle of people, and then someone came knocking on my door. All right, mate, do you fancy taking us to Manchester to get some drugs? I give you $100. Yeah, no fucking problem. Anyway, I ends up taking him to Manchester on the way back outside Willie Bull Postal. Oh, fucking hell, Paul, the auxiliary here. I'm getting out the car, you can do what you want, mate. Anyway, pulled over, I got out the car. Fucking coppers came. Traffic cops was there, weren't they? his copper, his big bag of A's like that. He's walking to the back of the car and he's going to the camera. This is what these scumbags bring into the world to kill our children with. I'm thinking, oh no, please. This can't be happening to me. This is fucking mental. Ended up getting put on remand for a month. And I hadn't been to jail since I was like 23. So what's that? It's a good 20 plus fucking years. Do you know what though? Again, I think that experience was one of the things that kicked me up my arse as well. So I was 37, touching 38. You know, I was still responsible for
you understand the weight of it at that age, don't you?
Yeah. Again, you know, when you're in an environment, I'm an estate lad. I was brought up with an estate mentality. A grass is a grass is a grass, sort of idiotic.
You know that.
Yeah. So being involved in going to Manchester didn't seem like a big thing. You know what the copper said when he was walking to the back of his car was absolutely 1,000,000% bang on, wasn't it? I was bringing drugs into our town to kill fucking mad people, basically. But your naivety or lack of understanding or whatever you want to call it, you're just worried about yourself. You don't give a fuck about anybody else, do you? They don't care about me. Why should I care about them? I'm only going to Manchester to get A's. It's not like he's selling it to 13-year-olds. He's selling it to people who use A's. A bit like when I sold for a while, I was only selling heroin to heroin addicts. I wasn't selling it to people who never knew.
Yeah, you don't feel like you're doing harm. Then,
you know, it was part of that circle. You know, them things come with that lifestyle, don't they? You know, that criminality lifestyle. Negative
you always find a way to justify it, won't you? It's, like you say, it's not until you look back and go, actually, that copper was right in what he was saying.
1,000,000%. And I think, again, you know, one of the good things now, I'm really good at being responsible and understanding that there's only one person responsible for the choices that you're making, and that comes from within yourself. Like I said, if I'd have lived the life my dad wanted me to live, it would have been totally different. It probably 1,000,000% would have been if I'd have joined the army. Saying that, I could have been fucking killed in the army, though, couldn't I?
Exactly,
you know, so you don't know where your life's going to go, depending on what choices you make.
I think that's where things like the thought of fate and destiny actually can be quite comforting, because rather than looking back at your life and thinking what could have been or should have done this and should have done this, it's, in a way, sometimes it is a little bit comforting to think everything happens for a reason, and everything happens so I could be sat in this chair right now. Like, not to sit in this chair right now, but I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be right now. I think that's the only way really to find comfort in everything that we go through, from, you know, trauma to the best experiences of our lives. You know, I think for a reason.
Most nights now I go to bed with a good conscience, a clear mind, not feeling guilty or...
I know you always struggle around the time of like June, and obviously June 16th in particular.
I mean, I've had loads of counselling around Matthew's, the thing that happened with Matthew, and it has helped, but it hasn't changed it.
No.
The pain still resides within me. My kids know when I'm struggling, because the first text I'll send them is "I love you," and then they'll all congregate together and go, "What's up with my dad?" It's not that I don't send them "I love you,"
I know,
but
you're obviously thinking of something to prompt yourself.
Well, I'm quite an emotional person now. I've learned to manage how I feel. Whereas before, like most men, we're men, aren't we? And we're not meant to feel this.
Feel emotional. You know, share emotion.
Share emotion. You know, probably one of the hardest things. I love it, and it makes me cry, and I love watching it. It's a bit of a sucker for punishment. Is like Britain's Got Talent, America's Got Talent kids.
Yeah.
Seeing them get the golden buzzer. I love seeing it, but it then reinforces the loss that I felt. My son never got that opportunity, never got that choice. Yeah. But seeing it is absolutely amazing as well, you know. So even still, I think there'll always be a lot of different mix of emotions. You're always going to wonder
what could have been. Yeah, what could Matty have grown up to be? What job would he be doing? Them thoughts, and I think it'd be only natural to think those.
I think I probably know how we would have been today. Because if he had a little bit of Katie in him, and a little bit of Adam, and a little bit of Paddy, and a little bit of Danielle, he'd be the most amazing person in the world.
That's nice.
Because he's got a little bit of all of them, and you know. That's how I like to look at it now. I like to look at it in the positive. This is the first year, actually, that I haven't needed any counselling around his death. As you know, I had a bit of a life experience in January, having a stroke myself, and I think having that stroke has allowed me to live more in the here and now, and
be a bit
to
more
not
present.
live back in what was and what's been and gone, and the things that I can't change. So I think that certainly helped this year. And like I said, me and my partner and Katie, we all went to the river and put some flowers down. We stayed there for an hour, and we had a reminisce, and it was really, really nice. It wasn't sad, we didn't cry, we weren't upset.
Sort of thing,
So I think having that little bit of a scare certainly helped me look at stuff with a little bit of a different perspective with that, without a shadow of a doubt.
So just going back to like the detox and stuff, you know, no, Antonio was a big help for that and what you've gone through. Did you go, because obviously, did you go through like a 12-step approach or anything? So you've never done anything? I went through
the John Thurston approach, where you just suck it up, you get on with it, and it is what it is.
But to maintain, because I always say, I mean, in terms of, you know, everyone's got their own approach to recovery, to maintain sobriety as well. Sometimes I speak to people being on a 12-step program, I'm almost envious of how at peace and with everything, how this support structure, like just going back to the idea of men being men. Do you know, I saw something recently say, when you're at your, you know, as a man, when you're at your darkest place, who do you call? And I was like, well, nobody. You just suck it up and get on with it. You might pass a comment to a friend here and there, say, I'm just struggling a little bit. But for the most part, you just suck it up. But to have that support network, and I think obviously more of a support network is needed for someone with, you know, that addiction and that all or nothing mentality, and how, you know, living every day as it comes, each day as it comes, one by one. How do you maintain sobriety then now? Is it the sort of, because obviously from this entire conversation, family has been the biggest part of you know, what we spoke about here. Not to paraphrase as such, but would you say the family is that higher power that you've needed to maintain sobriety, or?
I don't think it is, no. I think it's just an inner determination, knowing that I was better than what I was doing to myself in the first place. I just didn't know how to escape it in the early times. Now, obviously, the job that I do really helps.
Because you see people at the worst, don't you?
At the worst. I see them at the best. I see all stages. I see, you know, abscesses, blood clots, everything that I had, I see on a daily basis. Now, if you're seeing that daily and that doesn't reinforce them with you, then probably you don't be working what I'm doing. You know, I'm a needle exchange worker, as you well know, and I mean, the needles I used to use was that long. And people go to me, how can you do a needle exchange now when you're used to injecting? I just said to them, look, I've trained my brain to think differently to it now.
So it's not like a trigger for you?
So it's not like a trigger. So I'll get a needle out when I'm doing a thing and I'll open it and I go to them, you know, back in the day, I looked at that and went, yeah, you what? Now I look at it and I think, did I really do that? Was I really pushed? The reality is, I was. And that, again, is one of them things that helps me stopping forgetting where I came from.
Reinforcing.
Really sad this weekend. One of my own muckers died. In the 15 years I've been in recovery, I've seen way too many of my old friends die. Way too many. You know, from a lack of understanding, it does happen to you. It's like most academics, it doesn't happen to me, you know. It'll happen to them, but it doesn't happen to me.
So you're saying about dependency, wasn't it? You know, what happened to me, I'll be fine.
If you've never been over in your life, you ain't going to go up, right? It's not one of them things that'll happen to you, is it? But I've seen addiction destroy families. Another couple of my mates, partners, both dead, really young. Left 4 kids behind, all under fucking 15. 3 of them under 10 at that point. My recovery sometimes is dedicated to the people who's sad, to the people that I know. You know, because they'll all be looking down, a bit like my son who stood behind me, patting me on the back, going, Dad, keep it up, I'm proud of you. I try and instill that with the people that I work with. There's no judgment from me. I'm not better than anybody because I've learned to live my life differently. I've just learned to live my life differently. He does sit there waiting for his opportunity. So a lot of recovery is understanding, isn't it, I think. You know, out of the blue, I'll get a bath because I've got no veins. If I get a bath, a vein comes up in my calf there, and if my heart sees it out the corner, my subconscious mind goes to me, oh, it'd be nice. So I know 1,000,000% he's sat there waiting for his opportunity, isn't he? I've learnt to manage him. So when that happened in the first go, I'd been there all day. It wouldn't be in there for like 30 seconds or a minute or whatever it is now, because now it's in, no it won't, and it's straight out. But again, that's them skills that you learn in recovery, isn't it? I've learned to manage urges and cravings. I've learned to manage my own shame. You know, that is my own stuff. I love the job that I do. I love being empowered by every form of recovery, be it 12-step, be it therapeutic, however you got there, you got there. But praise you, you know. I'm a big believer of everybody is the same. Nobody's better than nobody because of the choices that people are making. And I don't know somebody else's life and why they are in the position they're in. For me, I feel the reason I ended up where I ended up was I was too big-headed, too naive, I'm better than this, you know, when in reality, what a mad way to look at it, because I want. And anybody can end up where I ended up, trust me. Nobody intentionally ends up being an heroin addict or a crackhead or an alcoholic. Or, you know, I think sometimes people out there think people have these life achievements. I want to be an heroin addict. It sounds like it'll be fucking great, doesn't it? It was never really like that for me. Recovery has always been something that's been self-empowered from within me. It's only me who can keep me clean. No one else can do that. There's only me who can deal with the thoughts, the shame that I feel sometimes, the guilt that I feel, the pain that I caused my parents, the pain that I caused my children. You know, that's my parents to bear. That's part of living in recovery. You have to live with them choices that you made. Nobody else can do that for you. And once you can put that in a place that sits all right with you, then that's absolutely fine. But for me, the only thing that gets you to there is walking the walk. We've all heard it for long enough. My mum and dad heard it for fucking years. You know, yeah, I'm doing great. 10 minutes later, my voice changes, goes, you fuck down, you know, so... I mean, for the first 2 years, my dad didn't believe a word that came out my mouth, which was totally understandable. Can you lend me 20 quid? I need some gas and electric. I want the receipts. I'm 18 months clean at this point. What do you mean you want the receipts? But I 100% respect where he was coming from. You know, trust and stuff like that has to be something. It's got to be earned. You respect, you've got to earn that back. You know, I know how people see me now. You know, I've been shouting recovery's great for 15 years. What couldn't I look like if I went back to where I came from? You know what I mean? So again, it is about having them good things in your life. Why would I want to throw away what I've got? I'm the most luckiest person in the world. I've got a fabulous family. I've got a great team of people who I work around. People care about me just for the sake of caring about me. There's no incentive there. No. That's what recovery is about for me.
Do you see people, obviously, you do the needle exchange, you see people every day. What is the one bit of advice that you like to give or want to give to people who are maybe listening to this or people you see in the needle exchange about recovery?
Believe in yourself. Only one person's going to change this. Yes, people will be around to support that, but when it comes down to it, there's only one person who can do it, and it's yourself. You've got to find that belief, that drive, that understanding, learning about yourself again. You know, I'm a totally different person after 37 than I was between the first 37 years of my life. I was a cock. That's the bottom line. That's the bottom line. Since then, I've become... Well, I think I've always been a caring person and an emotional person, you know. Not many people at 23, back in 1993, was bringing the kids up on their own as a single parent. I think I was the first male, definitely on my estate where I lived, I was bringing up my children on my own. You know, I was a good dad. I always have been a good dad, but I was very good at making bad choices within that as well, you know. My kids are probably... What would my kids say about me? I think they would say we're really proud of my dad and what he's done. But they know the real me. Like I said, if I send them a love you, they always know that I've watched something that's upset me or it's got me a little bit emotional. And I say them all the time. Yeah, I'm lucky. I'm a 1%er. There's not many of us.
Not many who get to do it,
You know.
So obviously we've got the recovery walk coming up this year, September 23rd. First time it's come to Hull as someone who's been in recovery as yourself, you know, as 15 years in the way that you have. Any comments on the recovery walk coming to Hull?
First instinct was, I'm not going on that.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Shame kicked in.
Ah, interesting. Okay.
Not going. I don't want people looking at me like I'm fucking some junkie.
Yeah.
But then obviously the other part of me kicks in. No, be proud of what you've done. You're empowering people. Yeah. You're supporting people like yourself. So yeah, the first instinct was I'm not going.
That's interesting.
I'm not bringing that shame on my, But I've looked at it, I've worked it, I've put it in my mind. It's the first one I'm going to be going to, actually.
Oh, is it? Nice.
Because that's what I felt the first time that I was invited to go to Liverpool and do theirs.
Yeah.
I'm the only person out of my circle of friends who was clean.
Yeah.
And I had a big circle of friends. I've lost a lot of them friends.
Got to do it for them.
But I'm the only person who was clean out of that circle of friends. That tells you something about 1%ers, and that don't come very often. Yeah. And when they do come, we got to make the most of them. We got to help. I love empowering people into change. I hope that everybody I meet, I touch with a little bit of something that makes their life a little bit easier. I'm not looking for the big, let's get clean and let's do the song and dance.
You can be someone else's Antonio. That's the one thing you've got to remember.
That's brilliant. Yeah, exactly. And I think, you hit the nail on the head, haven't you, there? I am that Antonio.
You are.
That compassionate, caring, no judgment person. And I think that's why people like working with me.
I think that's why people resonate with you and with everything that you do as well so much. But no, John, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I've got a series of questions that I ask every one of our guests just to end the podcast on a light-hearted note. And my first question is, what is your favourite word?
Man.
Nice. Least favourite word?
I'm not going to say that. Cunt. No, smackhead.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Any derogative term, some head, crackhead, baghead, smackhead, alkhead, whatever. Yeah.
Favourite sound?
I love music.
Anything in particular?
Anything. Yeah. Really.
Just
Got a bit of Elvis recently. Yeah. But generally any music. I love music.
Yeah. Least favourite sound?
Babies crying.
Yeah. Understandably. Favourite curse word?
You cock. Yeah, fuck it. Yeah, I love saying that on the breath. Yeah, cock. Yeah, right, cock.
Yeah. Rob, you're going to have to help me out here. Profession. Yeah, I've got profession. I was going to wait for that one. If you wasn't doing the profession that you was doing, if you wasn't working as a harm reduction worker, what else would you be doing?
Do you know what? When Matthew died, I was actually working on boats on the ocean, like I said, and we was working with divers that day. I'd have loved to have been a diver, I think.
Nice.
Yeah.
What's your worst job that you could ever imagine doing?
Oh, I've had the worst job you can ever imagine doing. That was putting peanuts on a cake for fucking 12 hours.
Peanuts on a cake?
Peanuts on a cake.
Hey, Scott, you're going to tell me that one before.
At that cake factory, where they come round on a conveyor belt, you just put a peanut on top of each cake.
Is that it?
A walnut whip.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, yeah.
For how long? Like 8 hours a day?
12 hours it was. Fucking 12 hours of hell.
Putting a peanut on a cake.
Yeah, I'd rather done 12 hours rattling, Matt.
Yeah, I can imagine. Bloody hell. And then tell me something that excites you.
Family. Life.
Yeah. Nice. Something that doesn't excite you.
Dying.
Yeah, I was going to say it goes hand in hand, doesn't it? Complete opposite of each other. And then lastly, on the topic of dying actually, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates? If heaven exists, that is.
Oh, do you know what? One of my friends a couple of years ago, I worked with Dad, and I went to his funeral. Now, if my funeral's anything like his, I'd be the most happiest person in the world. It was standing room only, and he had the same background as me, and he'd built the same life I'd built. So sometimes you do think, don't you? Yeah. I wonder what my funeral will be like. I wonder what people will say about me. I wonder if it'll be the positives or the negatives. So I think for me, I'd love to be able to look in on my funeral and just see who comes. Yeah. I've had a lot of bereavements over the last couple of years, and I lost a really, really close friend to a brain aneurysm. And I went to his funeral, and he was one of the lads that I played rugby with as well. And when we was in our late teens, early, we had, as you can imagine, playing in a rugby team of 15 people, we had a big, big circle of friends.
Yeah.
Not one person from our rugby team went to his funeral. Not even one of the mates who we all grew up with, except for me and his brother, was at his funeral. For me, I don't want my funeral to be like that, if I'm honest.
So
I would like to think I built up enough respect that even people who maybe I've not seen for a long time would end up coming to my funeral.
Yeah. So if not God, then what would you like to hear somebody say at your funeral about you? About you and the life that you lived?
Oh, it's an hard one, isn't it? I don't know. I just, you know, when you've lived in that no good sticky, you're hard
to find something positive.
It's hard. It's not that it's hard to find something positive. What I'd want somebody to say, I'd probably just want them to, a bit like me, just to speak from their heart today. You know, that I was a caring and thoughtful and understanding person, and like all people, I think I just want people to see me as all right, because I am. Yeah, I've had issues, but I'm all right.
All right,
yeah, he was all right. He was a cock at times, but he was all right.
But he was all right, yeah. You know? No, John, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for coming on today. Much appreciated. You've been wonderful. Thank you. And if you've enjoyed this episode of the Believe in People podcast, then please check out our other episodes and hit that subscribe button. You can also find clips, outtakes, and extras from this series on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at CGL Hull. That's at CGLHULL. We're on Apple Music, Spotify, Google, and YouTube Music, so please like and subscribe to be notified about new episodes. You can also search for Believe in People podcast on your favourite listening device, and if you can leave us a review, that will really help us in getting our message out there and rising up the daily podcast charts.